take it back all the way to Thursday night. Obviously, comes up a little bit short. Truly, I said this before, a game of inches, barely coming up short, taking that game into overtime in Arrowhead against Kansas City Chiefs. A valiant effort, truly, but when I asked about some of the quarterbacks that you wanted to talk about, you brought up Lamar, and specifically it was Lamar going up against the Kansas City Chiefs, which feels like a team in their way. Because I thought that Lamar played well. There's some throws that he could have made better, but just overall, I thought he operated the pocket with a lot of confidence. He wasn't afraid to step up. Obviously, wasn't afraid to use his legs. But to me, just he was on his toes. He looked confident. He looked really good back there, but they don't get the win. And it feels like it is a reoccurring issue, as it often is when people play the Chiefs, but specifically it matters for Baltimore because they are a team in their way of even getting to a Super Bowl. So what is the defensive matchup here between what Spags is throwing at the Ravens and kind of what you think the Ravens have been doing, what they need to be doing? What do you see with this matchup here with Lamar and the Chiefs specifically?
This is a team, like you said, they're going to have to get through the Chiefs at some point again. And playing, like losing pretty bad in the AFC Championship game, having a better showing on offense in week 1. But I do have to hand it to both defenses actually in that game where you felt like both teams treated this as another AFC Championship game, even though it was week 1 in terms of what they were doing on defense. There was nothing vanilla about anything that was going on both defenses, and especially with the Chiefs. Their issue is going to be like, the receivers are not big players for the Ravens in terms of size, with Bateman and Zay Flowers. Even likely is a small tight end, even though he had a good game. Andrew's the only one who's like a normal size for his position almost. So you had L'Jarius Sneed last year beating the crap out of receivers the whole season. You don't have that anymore, though I think the guys on the outside that the Chiefs still have, except for McDuffie, are bigger players as well.
Right.
I think that's a matchup that's just not going to be in the Ravens' favor. It's like they can get beat up by this Chiefs defense. And Lamar, who ran really well, scrambled really well, and he's generally not he's obviously a good scrambler, but he is more in the design QB run stuff is where he is outstanding and amazing, and the stuff you can do with him there. But he's never been this insane scrambler. And you saw really good scrambles out of him. However, I'm looking at him saying Lamar usually throws to open receivers. I thought there was a bit more open receivers that he could throw to. Going back into cover 2, a lot of cover 2. And they actually felt like they had plays designed to beat cover 2, and he didn't want to pull the trigger on them. I think that was a trend throughout the whole league with quarterbacks not wanting to pull the trigger on stuff that in that like 15 to 25 yard range, or maybe even 10 to 20 yard range down the field. Quarterbacks not willing to pull the trigger and throw some high level footballs. And Lamar, you were like just watching Lamar back, and you're like, hey, just pull the trigger on some of these corner routes. I mean, they kept running corner routes into cover 2, thought they were open. That is the theoretical idea, is throw corner routes versus cover 2, throw smash concepts versus cover 2. So you're like, all right, well, you gotta show that you can compete against this Chiefs defense before you want to believe that this is a team that can beat them in the playoffs, which like I said, I think they're going to see them in the playoffs. So That was my issue with Lamar. You saw in the first half, our boss said it during the game, under 2 yards average depth of target after the first half. I don't know what it ended up being, but like we got to push the ball a little bit more downfield, and there were some plays to be made that I don't think usually I think he does make, but he didn't in this game.
Yeah, I think that's been the talking point with the Ravens the whole time, and Isaiah Likely obviously showed up in a big way this in week 1, and he was able to really stand out for them. I think that he was their highest graded receiver. But yeah, I mean, he had an elite 90-point grade this past week at over 100 yards receiving. But no other receiver on the team had a receiving grade above 61. Rashad Bateman's next, and he had a 61.0. Like, Zay Flowers obviously getting more attention, and he had 12 targets compared to Bateman's just 5, so his production was a little bit better, and he was a little bit more emphasized. But there's just not a receiver that's, like, winning in that regard. So I wonder if it's a little bit of a trust thing. I wonder if it is sort of just this, hey, if I can't really see my receivers in space, because I felt like Lamar was pretty good at the over-the-middle stuff, like the deep crossers or the dig routes or like things like that was very much over the middle. He was very comfortable throwing, whether it was Isaiah Likely, whether it was Zay Flowers. He was very comfortable throwing those sort of crossing routes over the middle. But yes, sometimes you just got to be able to rip it to the sideline, and that was an area that I felt like he could have definitely attacked the field better. But it's so hard to kind of like talk about it in this way because you're out here mentioning what could really take them over the top. The Ravens are always so close. That's the thing. It's like they're always right there. And so when I watched Lamar's game, I went back and I watched all of his snaps. It's like, I think Lamar played well. Now, were there things they could have done better? Yeah, that's why we're having this conversation. But it's so difficult when a great QB plays well and you just go, well, again, came up short against the Chiefs. And I know that feels like it's been the NFL's curse for the last couple of years, but maybe that is just how they have to do it. You got to design things a little bit better to attack cover 2 in that way. And maybe it's just been a Lamar Jackson thing where he's not as comfortable doing that, and he's much more comfortable throwing with guys who are going horizontal versus, breaking vertically up the field to the sideline.
I'll also add, the offensive line. We talked about it the whole offseason. You already have to go to a backup, and then he's not good at tackle, at right tackle.
Right. Yeah.
So
Rosengarten. Yeah.
This was they were teetering here. Like, this has been a really good offensive line for a long time. They go and kind of rejuvenate John Simpson's career, and now he's already gone. Morgan Moses has been a good player. He's gone. Zeitler has been a good player for them. Obviously, maybe, with his age, they felt comfortable letting him go, but like, he's been a really good player for them over the years. So now you're talking about 3 guys who we just don't, we know Patrick McCarry, he's been around, but he's always been a backup. He's always been a swing tackle. Rosengarten came in and was awful. Voorhees and Falele were like fine, but I don't know if they're, well, Falele versus Chris Jones is not good, but everyone else is okay.
Yeah, objectively. Right.
But like this, I don't even think this is a great, outside of Chris Jones, this is not a great Chiefs D-line. Karlaftis hasn't come around.
Well, they're great together. They're great together under Spags, but yeah.
Yes, they exactly, because Spags is so good. But in terms of like one-on-ones, like Karlaftis hasn't come around, and their other first-round pick, and Adike Azuma, that's a whole other story. But so like, you have a solid player in like Mike Dana and like Tershawn Wharton, like they're solid players, but only really Chris Jones is above average, I would say, and he's obviously more than above average. But this offensive line, like, man, it teeters on the edge of the brink of collapse here this season. And I think we knew that. Like, I don't think I'm saying anything that no one knew, but there was some really bad reps. Like, Ronnie Stanley's going to be fine, most likely. Linderbaum, we know, is going to be good, but other than that, like, it's not. It teeters on the brink here, I think, on the O-line.
It'll be fascinating to see if there's a little bit of a blueprint here that is developing, whatever, with Lamar, and knowing, hey, he's going to beat us in a couple of ways, because people talk about that all the time. Like, oh, like this guy, you can't stop him, you can only slow him down. Maybe this is a little bit of a way that you slow down Lamar, especially when it comes to these playoff caliber defenses.